Hello and welcome to a special edition of Planet Waves TV. I'm recording on Friday at about 10:15 in the morning. It's a balmy 105 degrees outside here in upstate New York, as you can tell by the way that I'm dressed. And I'm here today to talk about Mars stationing direct. This happens at February 23rd. That's on Sunday at a couple of seconds before 9 o'clock at night. So essentially on Sunday evening in New York time. But the way that a planetary station works, especially an interplanetary station, there's a large window of when we're feeling and experiencing that, and that window is right now. But let me back up a little bit and just give a 2-minute explanation of what a planetary retrograde is. And let's not consider the outer planets, let's just consider the inner planets. But basically, a planet is retrograde when it passes between the Earth and the Sun, or when the Earth passes between that planet and the Sun. So in the case of Mercury, Mercury passes between the Earth and the Sun, and that's when we get a Mercury retrograde. In the case of Mars, the Earth passes between Mars and the Sun, and that is when we get a Mars retrograde. And the thing that all retrogrades have in common is that the Earth is closer to the planet that is retrograde. And it appears in the longitudinal map, which I'm going to show you in a second, that the planet is going backwards in longitude when it's not really doing so. All that's happening is the Earth is overtaking that planet, which creates the illusion that the planet is going backwards. And so in usual relative motion, it's backwards enough, right? It's like if you're passing a car on the highway, in a sense, that car is going backwards, but it's really only going slower than you, but you're overtaking it. And that, for example, is Mars retrograde. In the case of Mercury, Mercury is overtaking the Earth. Mercury's orbit is much shorter. Mars' orbit is 2 years. So what does this all mean? Well, these are important review periods, these interplanet retrogrades. They are a time when the planet kind of goes offline in the normal sense of its action, and then you can kind of get in there and do some repair work. And then in the case of Mars, that's a deep reconsidering of what you want, and a reconsideration of the ways that you assert yourself and what motivates you, and all of the things that Mars represents, largely desire, motivation, impulse, aggression. And it doesn't mean that we get a break from those. As we can see, the entire early in the 47 administration has been a very, very aggressive time. And so if the work is not done spiritually, if there's not a review or a reflection, then you can get a toxic manifestation of the planet. Okay, so I'm really, though, talking about in the personal human realm. I think in my articles over the past few months, I have fairly copiously described the state of the world. And I want to talk about Mars retrograde in the more individual, private, personal sense of your volition, of what moves you, what drives you to take action. And then in the case of Mars retrograde, your points of contact with guilt and resentment. And Mars is stationing direct in Cancer. Half the retrograde has been in the sign, a little bit more actually than half the retrograde has been in the sign Cancer. And Mars retrograde in Cancer has a little bit of that sulking, mommy issue type of feeling. I will say that one of the, let's say, things I've acquired the most knowledge about is the extent to which people struggle and suffer with unresolved family issues. I started to figure this out when I was reading as a much younger astrologer for people who were much older than me and seeing that they were still struggling with mommy and daddy issues. They were still in pain over material from their childhood. I have relatives who can't shut up about mommy and daddy, and they're, in their 50s. And when I look at my dad, I see the ways in which he was brutally impacted by the outlook and the conduct of his parents, both of whom I knew somewhat well, and learned over the years the things that nobody said. And people are basically dragging around a lot of mommy and daddy issues, and we see particularly the mommy issues showing up in the sign Cancer, where Mars is stationing direct. It's stationed retrograde in Leo. There's a lot of daddy issues in Leo. And so when an event spans Leo and Cancer, we're going to see family drama stuff appearing. And the thing is that with the retrograde, it may appear in a way that is not plainly obvious. It may appear in a way that you can't really tell what it is. It may be subversive. It may be, stick air quotes around this, passive aggressive. And Mars in Cancer certainly has that. But I'll tell you the personal breakthrough I had on the theme of passive aggression, which is that somebody had been throwing the term around, and I was at that time working closely with my primary teacher, who started as my therapist, Joseph Trousseau of Woodstock, and without whom I would not be able to sit here and do this work. I have had a lot of training. I have done some really good work with astrologers, much older and in some cases wiser. But Joe taught me how to show up for the work by showing up for the work. Anyway, so one day somebody was throwing around the word passive aggression, and I had a session scheduled, and I walked in and I sat down in my chair in Joe's office. I said, Joe, what's passive aggression? And he said, well, it'll be a lot easier to understand if you remove the word passive. I'm like, so passive aggression is aggression, but it's more of the style of you put your car in reverse and you slam into the guy behind you, and then you accuse him of rear-ending you. Well, in some strict, Mars retrograde sense, yes, there was a collision involving the rear end of your vehicle and the front end of the vehicle behind you, but you're the one who put your vehicle in reverse. But the passive part is you can say, I don't know. He hit the back of my car. Anybody who hits the back of my car is automatically responsible. Therefore, you, who I drove into, are responsible for driving into me because I say so. That's passive aggression. And that's a kind of, anyone I think could see like, wow, that doesn't really make very much sense, except for the people who would say, oh, of course, he has the right to be angry. What was that car doing behind him? Okay, there's no end to the excuse making. So we get to unravel this. Now let's go through some of the basic. As I'm still learning how to present astrology in video format, despite the fact that I've got 700 videos on my YouTube. That's hard to believe. And YouTube has graciously let us put links in with our program notes. Again, they had suspended our privilege of putting in links. I think I said the C word and the V word too many times on this channel. I promise to be a good boy. I'll never say the C word or the V word again. All right. Now, if you hear me say the C word or the V word, just remind me, just type something into the comments. So here's the chart for Mercury stationing direct. I'm going to skip the Mercury stationing Mars. The Mars stationing direct chart. I'm going to skip the Mars retrograde chart. That was a long time ago. but I've implied it in this chart. Mars starts at about 8 degrees of Leo when it goes retrograde. 6:10. Excuse me. Pardon me. Excuse me. It's still early. 6 degrees and 10 minutes. It didn't oppose my moon. 6 degrees, 10 minutes. So the retrograde makes it look like Mars is going backwards in the chart. Remember, the chart's a relative object. You and the Earth are in the middle, and it's like being in the middle of the teacup ride. Or it's like being on one of the cars in the teacup ride, and then you're tracking the position of everything else. And so anyway, in this teacup ride, the Earth is said to be in the center. So for about 10 weeks, Mars went retrograde, and you can see that it went retrograde to 17 degrees of Cancer and 1 arc minute. So it went back 8 degrees, 6 degrees of Leo, 17. I don't want to do the math. It's around 20-ish degrees. I can't do math sideways and on the fly. I can do it though. I got a 93 in algebra, and they knew that I didn't cheat on the Regents because I was not capable of it. I had a tutor. Okay, so after failing all year. All right, so now let's start with Mars retrograde. Notice there's a little group of planets here. Varuna's at 8, Vulcanus is at 3. That's a special point without a body. Solaris hanging right around there. I forgot to write down the degree, sorry. These are Varuna's not in play yet, but Vulcanus is a lot of energy, and we're seeing this retrograde had a lot of energy. By the way, we're going to see a shift in the behavior of, add some air quotes, the administration, because the administration got into all of this activity that it's been in. Like hanging cloth over the signs of federal agencies with Mars retrograde. I assure you, they are not using astrologers because they are smarter than astrologers, and they're smarter than astrology, and their AI is smarter than this bullshit. All right, so Mars begins its retrograde in Leo back in December. Now, the thing with things that begin in early December is that the thing between us and them are these holidays, right? Christmas and New Year's and various other things mixed in. And it seems like so long ago. But it was 10 weeks ago. But it's easy to forget way back into late 2024. God, that was so 2024. But this retrograde began then. And what I'm saying here is that the Leo phase of the retrograde charged up Mars with a lot of energy, and in retrograde form, that can be self-destructive. Guilt and resentment, the very hallmarks of Mars retrograde, particularly in Cancer, are self-destructive emotions. We love them. People live for them. They fuel their whole psychic reality on guilt and resentment, but it is self-destructive. So then somewhere early in the year, I think, first week January, Mars reaches Cancer, and it continues to go backwards out to 17 degrees and 1 minute, where it's going to be at this time, Sunday night, Eastern time. And so, therefore, we check the chart for the aspect pattern at that time. And in the last video, the one from last night, where I talk about Venus retrograde, I introduced the concept of an aspect pattern. And an aspect pattern is when you have a lot of planets in different signs and houses working together as one idea. This is the place where human interpretation is essential, because there is no way for anything other than a human mind, human creativity to synthesize narrative and meaning from this aspect. So let's look directly at it. First of all, the obvious thing going on is that Mars is trine Mercury at the time of the station direct. The less obvious thing is Mars is trine Nessus, a centaur, the third centaur. The symbol being, see if I can draw this sideways. That's all sideways, backwards, upside down. The symbol of Nessus is that, approximately. There's a rumor that the arrow, which is not part of the official glyph, was added in honor of Melanie Reinhardt. By the way, I didn't mention yesterday that Melanie Reinhardt wrote a very good book about Saturn, Chiron, and the Centaurs. It's really the only book that covers them all, and it's called Saturn, Chiron, and the Centaurs, to the Edge and Beyond. Look it up. It's worth reading. It's even a good starting book for astrology. Do not start with all this personality bullshit, ego bullshit. Go right to that. It's comprehensible. And I can teach this book, and I may, right here. All right, so the obvious thing is that Mars is trine Mercury right at that moment, and it's about to be trine Nessus. Mercury is going to keep going. Mercury is quick. Nessus is sitting there quite slow. And so we're going to have a very long Mars Nessus trine. Nessus, too, brings in matters of accountability, of the connection of cause and effect, the notion of consequences. That is Nessus. Nessus ultimately means that you possess responsibility for your life. But in this pattern, this water to water trine, with Mars kind of being sneaky, being retrograde and all that stuff, the thing to watch out for is the possible meaning of a trine, which I get from Martha Lang Westcott, and you'll never hear this anyplace else. You lie, and I'll swear to it. Trines do not always mean that. But when we have a water sign trine with Mercury in Pisces and Nessus right there, it is worth contemplating the idea that if you lie, I will swear to it. We've all done this to one extent or another. We all have that place where we will swear to somebody else's lie. I have places I will swear to somebody else's lie if it reaches a certain standard of evading personal danger. But casually lying to, for example, if I had Anne Frank hiding in my attic, you better believe I would lie. Oh, no, there's nobody there. But the casual lies are the problem with the lying and swearing to it. The gaining of petty advantage, the acting out of revenge and so forth for meaningless things. That's a lot of the lying and swearing to it. And so what is called for with Mercury trine Mars, with Mars stationary direct, with Nessus involved, is a very high degree of taking accountability for who and what you are, who and what you feel, and what you've done, and in your relationships to other people. We have a lot of activity on the Libra Aries axis, which is going to emphasize relationships and self-actualization in relationships. That's all going on in the background. Let's come back to this aspect pattern here of what exactly Mars is doing. Now, remember that when a planet stations retrograde or direct, it holds the same degree for a while. It's always moving relative to the Earth, but this chart only goes out to a fraction of a degree. That's to say, arc minutes, and then there's arc seconds, and then there's fractions of an arc second. Those are not shown. And when you go out to the even to arc seconds, there is no moment when the planet is stationary. We just call it that. It looks like that. I know this from Tracy Delaney, who wrote the program. Oh, where's that? You should see how much paper there is here. I'm working every day to keep it organized. So anyway, Mars is holding this trine to Nessus, and that is insisting of personal accountability. Now, the next thing, here's another one that hardly anybody is going to see. Notice I have this hodgepodge of aspects in the inside of my wheels. And note that none of them are squares, trines, sextiles, oppositions. I draw in the weird aspects. Any schmo can see a trine. Water to water. 17, 17. Oh, 18, that counts too. Oh, 20, Saturn, that counts too. Anybody can see that. You don't need to have these little reminders. But what do you need the reminders of? Well, for example, I don't need this one either. Anybody can see that. That is a quincunx. But the really juicy one is called a quindecile. It's 165 degrees. And this is the aspect that nobody told me about till Al Morrison. Nobody told you about. Hold on, I'm going to get a book. Hold on, I cannot find. I just had it the other day. Anyway, there's only one book that describes the work of Al Morrison. It's easy to find. Just look up Al Morrison book in Amazon. So I didn't know about the quindecile. That's 165-degree aspect till reading Morrison. Then I followed Morrison, who died like in 1999, and we have Morrison to thank for Chiron. So I began investigating this aspect earlier this last year, and it is an incredible aspect. And what we have is the most important quindecile in this chart is between Mars, stationing, extra powerful, extra influential, and Pluto in Aquarius. So this connects Mars, stationing direct, and Pluto. That's the thing that an aspect does. Then the question is, what's the nature of the connection? And the nature of the connection is intensity, obsession. It has drive. It has connection. It is what you see going on, for example, in the public realm right now. This obsessive behavior and the support or the hatred of that behavior. That's what we got going on. I would note that, we're talking about Pluto early in Aquarius. We do not have any experience with this. Everything that happens with Pluto in Aquarius is a new thing because none of us have any experience with Pluto in Aquarius. And at the moment, Pallas Athene, the asteroid that associated with law and politics, is moving in a conjunction to Pluto. It's going to go right past it. It's not that fast, but it's only going to last a few days. And then it's going to be gone. It'll probably be gone by like Tuesday. It'll be out to 3, 4, 5, and then the whole thing's behind it. So in the Mars station direct chart, we have this, we add politics to the entire mix, and it's conjunct Pluto in Aquarius. And you might say, the politics of technology, getting caught in politics and not realizing that everything right now is about technology, and not seeing the self-destructive ways in which we are imbibing and getting involved with the kinds of technologies that we have, how quickly we will delegate thought, how quickly we will delegate thought to artificial intelligence. I experiment with it, and I can't help but seeing it because I use Google for my search, because it to me still is the best search engine for what I do. I know how to use it. I've used it since '98, since the beginning, and it's not as good as it used to be. But now they're giving AI answers, and these are tidy, convincing, succinct answers to questions that are completely misleading us because they distract us from thinking, from working it out. And what you see me doing here with this chart is a process of thinking and working it out. It's why I just don't come right out and say, this is what this means. That's it. No, there's a lot going on here. You've got to take every one of these encounters into account. And so one of the things going on with Pallas and Pluto is that it's emphasizing, in particular here, I mean, I'm in the States, but we're all kind of now thrown in the same boat, and we're all having to deal with Trump, and that is that um, we are incredibly politically naive, and we mistake, um, we mistake all kinds of things for politics, and we like to make up stories about politics, knowing absolutely nothing about the issues we're talking about. Who the hell heard of U.S. aid before you read its obituary? Had you heard of it? Look, I'm a journalist, man. I get deep into stuff. It just so happens I've never done a story involving U.S. aid. I also had never heard of U.S. aid. Maybe I heard of one of its programs, but I figure if I haven't heard of it, then most people haven't heard of it. Well, let's see if I can. Torches of Freedom. See, I work on paper partly to stay in the real world, and to turn my charts into art projects. I wanted to show you the Declaration of Independence chart, but the Declaration of Independence chart shows that the Americans in particular view politics as a kind of a game, as kind of a sport. Hooray for our side. Ooh, I don't like those people. Close the border, without having any knowledge of the issues. And what we're getting here is a blast of obsession with what we're calling politics, but it really has nothing to do with politics. So bear that in mind, that there is this very powerful connection, and you can see it's indicated here by the green Q. And when you magnify the green Q and you just show it how it looks in my style of pencil chart, it goes right to Pluto and right to Pallas Athene. And this is aggressive, it is obsessive, and we're going to see some major sea change as Mars stations direct. In other words, we're going to enter a distinct phase of our existence personally and also of collective existence. Now, while we're here, all right, so let's just review Mars retrograde. From a personal standpoint, it is the guidance I'm receiving from this chart is saying, first of all, what do you want? Second, do you feel guilty about what you want? What do you really want? Is that, do you consider it a guilty pleasure? A lot of people are into this whole guilty pleasure thing. Well, I like it, but I feel guilty about it. And I like feeling guilty about it. So I like liking it so I can do it, and then I can feel guilty about it. And it's like, okay, that's not very canine. If you like somebody, you'll lick their face. All right. Guilt and resentment. What are the meaning of these things for you? Where is this coming from? And do you take for granted that, like, that's it? All there is guilt and resentment? There's quite a few people who think that, like, that's basically it. The guilt and resentment are as natural as, like, bugs and plants and flowers and trees, but I assure you that they are not, and they are isolating you from yourself. So that all falls under the general heading of desire. Second, third, fourth, Cancer, what's up with your feelings toward your mother? What's up on the mommy issue thing? And remember that the mommy issue thing will show up in men as sulking and in women as over attachment to mother. Different representations. Daddy issue, a little bit different. So sulking on the part of men and over attachment on the part of women. And partisanship on the part of partisanship toward women on the part of women. Okay, then we will have Mars proceed direct. It enters Mars re-enters Leo positions. Mars is it Leo? Mars comes back to Leo on April 17th. I use this little old air book to cast most of my astrology charts, because the newer Macs don't run the program that I use, which gives me the kind of chart display that gives me the kind of charts I can present in this format. All right, so Mars enters Leo on April 17th. Pay attention. So we're going to go through a series of what I would call sea changes. And by the way, this is especially potent if you're on the Aries Libra axis, if anything important there, or on the Taurus Scorpio axis, because that's where we get Mars acting as either the planet of you or the planet of your relationships. But remember, Mars is motivation. Mars is motivation. Mars is motivation of the kind, I'm going to eat the hamburger. I want to fuck the girl. I want to get the guy. I want to do this. I want to do that. I absolutely have to have that new car. Or what gets you up and going in the morning. Whatever it is that gets you up in the morning, that's what your Mars is about. So pay attention to what gets you up and going in the morning. Is it a sense of desire, excitement, creativity, or is it obligation, necessity, and responsibility? Now's a really good time to tune your Mars. Okay? Tune your Mars. A couple of other bits. Let's just quickly review the deep background of our situation right now. So, big context, Pluto in Aquarius. Another big context is that you can see here that Neptune is getting awfully close to Aries and goes into Aries on March 30th. It's going to take a while. It's going to take more than 5 weeks to cross this last 1.125 degrees, but on March 30th, Neptune reaches Aries. Then this thing is going on. This is the thing. The last happened in 1972, and it's happening now. 71, 72, very special time in history. I will do something on Chiron returns for people who are about 50 years old soon. All right, so this is happening, and this is the awakening aspect. It's Chiron conjunct Eris. In 1972, there was no Chiron and there was no Eris. No one even thought these things could exist. There was nothing in an orbit like Chiron, and there was nothing in an orbit like Pluto that was known. And Eris is nothing like Pluto. And now we are experiencing the conjunction of Chiron and Eris for the first time consciously ever. That is big. And it is also aided and abetted by Neptune entering Aries, followed by Saturn entering Aries. So we are in the kind of almost last hurrah of Saturn and Pisces. Both Neptune and Saturn retrograde back for a while, but still we are now in things happening for the last time. And one of the things happening for the last time is this Mars retrograde ending trine Saturn. So overall here, I realize this is a lot of astrology, and what I think happens with astrology is that the things I'm saying that I'm not necessarily providing a clear interpretation for still kind of spark thoughts and ideas in your mind. And that's astrology, right? Astrology is the inspiration, the sparking of thoughts and ideas in your mind. So that's why I'm not that concerned that I do not drive everything to a point, that I lay it out and I talk about what the chart, I describe the chart, I give some circumspect interpretations of what the chart is saying, I break down the various elements, and then you are actually doing astrology when you start to put these things together. You may not be, doing, you may not be working in the mechanics of the chart as a primary thing, but it's a little like, perhaps terrible metaphor, when you're fixing your car, you realize, well, you can say, yeah, I have some experience. Maybe it's that or that, and then you're not going to necessarily get in there and fix it. But you know enough astrology and you're curious about it that the descriptions that I'm offering and the possible interpretations, some of them are going to work for you. Some of them are going to get you going on an original thought pattern, and that is that is what I think that the type of astrology we're doing here is very good for. While I'm here, I just finished the Pisces reading. It is called Sea Changes. You can find that at astrology.boutique. All of this work that I do for you is sponsored by Planet Waves subscribers, our Substack subscribers, and then the customers of my prepared readings. And to a real extent, my private clients. I do work with private clients, and my preferred work is midlife, late life, career changes. That's my preference for who I want to work with. So it's a form of professional consulting. I'm also very good at business consulting. But on the more consumer level, I produce the most excellent products like handcrafted, organically grown hemp clothing. And that is all at the astrology.boutique. That's how it is. Boutique is the top level domain. Just type in astrology.boutique. You'll be taken there. There's lots and lots of previews. You could play on this website for a week and not run out of things to hang out with for free. But then the products I sell are economically priced, most in the realm of $33. If you really can't afford it, write to us at cs@planetwaves.net and we will help. But most people can afford the price of lunch for an astrology reading that may contain one sentence that changes your life. That's how astrology works. It's not the whole hour that counts. It's the one thing I say that you connect with in the course of that hour. In the middle of those 5,000 words, there may be one paragraph that contains an analysis that you need to be able to, get the wrench out of the gears. My annual readings are called The Awakening. They are absolutely fantastic. They come with a book called The Awa, a 65-page book. The Awakening will provide you with the equivalent of excellent therapy for months. That's how good my stuff is. I would be a fine therapist. I am very well trained. I like doing therapy, but I'm here in this lifetime to do astrology for you. But I always bring in that therapeutic element, which really means teaching you the ways that I've learned to help myself, setting the example of someone who has done so, and suggesting the ways that you can learn how to help yourself. All right, we're going to zip this up and get it up onto the channels. By the way, we have channels all over the place, Rumble and YouTube and all that stuff. But the homepage, depending on where you're getting this, is planetwaves.net. And my Substack is planetwaves.eu. All right, signing off from New York at 10:53 in the morning on Friday. Lots of love, or as I say to the dogs, bye for now.